I was 7 years old, I got my very first report card. It was my first grade first semester report card, and I still remember that day pretty vividly because it was the day that I set myself onto a very dangerous path. Now, I remember watching SpongeBob on the TV when my parents called me and they said, "Sana, didn't you get your report card today? Come, let's all gather around the couch, let's see what you got." So they called my siblings, they called me, and I pulled a little report card out of my folder, got it out of my bag, and I showed it to them. And I had gotten a 97, which isn't too bad if I do say so myself. But understand that at that time, I didn't really have a concept of what grades meant or how big of an achievement it was to get a 97. But what wasn't meaningless, though, were the reactions of my family. They were so proud of me. They were thrilled that day. I remember my siblings giving me hugs, my dad giving me a little pat on the head. That moment meant everything to me. It meant so much that I spent the next 8 years of my life torturing myself trying to chase that feeling again. Now, let's look at this story from another perspective, a psychological perspective, if you will, because I'm a psychology student, so I have to see everything through that lens. Now, what we were seeing there with little 7-year-old Sana was a classic case of Skinner's operant conditioning, where, to put it very simply, when an individual performs a behavior and they receive a reward for that behavior, then that behavior becomes strengthened and it's more likely to occur again. In my case, my behavior was getting good grades, achieving academically, whereas the reward that I was receiving was love and affection to a level that I had never received before. So there was this subconscious association made in my brain that if I continue to achieve this way, then I'll continue to get the reward that I want. Now, at the same time, there was also this fear that developed that if I don't continue to perform this way to this level, then I'll lose that reward. So with both of these thoughts embedded in my mind, I moved forward and I entered through primary and middle school. And I worked hard. I worked so hard, harder than any kid should have been working at that time, at that age. I was getting awards, shields, and certificates left and right for that. But at the same time, I was observing the other kids around my age, the other kids in my class, and I saw them getting scolded and belittled for not being able to keep up with these, frankly, crazy expectations of the authority figures in their life. They were achieving average, which is a good thing. That is perfectly normal and something that their parents or their teachers should have been proud of. But instead, just for being a kid, they were put down. Just for indulging in all the silliness and fun of that age, they were put down. And I saw that, I observed that, and it scared me. So I tried to move as far away as possible from all that. Instead, I poured my energy into extracurriculars, extra credit work, any extra project that I could pick up so that I could seem productive, just to meet the crazy expectations of people around me. I destroyed myself trying to work. I received labels like Sana, the smart kid, Sana, the hardworking kid, Sana, the one who's so mature for her age, which is not a normal label, by the way, that a child should receive. But nonetheless, that's what I wanted at the time, and so I was happy. But what I didn't know was I wasn't being productive. I was engaging in something called toxic productivity. Then came 9th grade. I'm sure you all remember the anxiety of high school when you're taking your first big boy, big girl exam, whether it was O-levels or inter. And that anxiety that everyone was feeling, I felt it tenfold. Because at that time, at the ripe age of 15, I was completely burnt out. I had put in so much effort towards my academics that I had nothing more to give at that time. So my anxiety was all the way up. And that fear that I mentioned before was starting to come true. I wouldn't be able to perform to that level again.
बटन ऑन करेंगे ना आपको करना पड़ेगा.
Now,
मुझे क्या मैं उसका बटन ऑफ नहीं कर दिया. जी.
Now I knew that
इसको चेक करना है इसके वॉइस माइक.
I knew that I wouldn't be able to perform that way, and that anxiety killed me. And it started manifesting in physical ways. My whole body would tremble and shake. There was this fear that I wasn't able to do enough. And because of that shaking, I remember not even being able to submit a few of my tests because my handwriting became so illegible at the point that my teachers wouldn't even accept it. And then that anxiety turned into nausea, which turned into throwing up constantly. My body grew weak, and I wasn't the Sana that I used to be. But thankfully, people around me noticed, and they helped me come out of it. My family, my friends, and especially my sister, she's here in the audience today, so shout out to her. Because of them, I was able to come out of it. But I say come out of it very cautiously because healing is rarely ever this straight line that you go through. It's more of this roller coaster where you're going up and down and left and right and sometimes backwards. Basically, healing isn't easy. And I wish that I had some super secret formula here for you today to unlearn toxic productivity, but that's not the case because that is an unrealistic expectation to have. You're never completely healed for something. There are always scars. But what I do have for you today are some pieces of wisdom that I've gathered from my 8 years of experience in the toxic productivity department. So my first little piece of advice is that understand that you're a human being. So why do you expect yourself to run like a machine? You're not expected to run 24/7. You need to take breaks because you're human after all. And what happens when you put this unrealistic expectation of yourself? You will go through so much mental and physical exhaustion that it will take years and years to recover. Believe me, I can testify for that. And that kind of brings me to my second point, which is you can say no to things. That little 2-letter word, it's not taboo or forbidden for you. You can say no to things to extra work that comes your way. Because what happens when you start accepting more than you can take on? Firstly, you're not going to be able to do everything to the standard that you want. And secondly, you're going to blame yourself. You're going to think that it's because of my incompetence that I wasn't able to do all of my work, when in reality, nobody could have done that. That it was an unrealistic expectation to hold on yourself. And my last piece of advice, and if there's something that you take away from here today, I really, really hope it's this. Be kind to yourself. We are so harsh in the way that we treat ourselves, especially in the way that we talk to ourselves. That negative self-talk does so much damage, you don't even realize it. Imagine if the way that you spoke to yourself, imagine if you spoke that way to a friend. God, Sana, you're so lazy, you're so incompetent. Look at everyone else around you. They're doing fine. Why aren't you doing fine? I know why. It's because you're incompetent, you're lazy, you'll never amount to anything. Imagine if you spoke that way to your friend. Even more, look left and right, and imagine you spoke that way to a stranger. You wouldn't, because that's harsh. So why allow yourself to speak that way to yourself? Instead, I want you to be kind, be forgiving to yourself, because at the end of the day, the only person on your side, the only one for you, is yourself. It's not your family, it's not your siblings, it's not your friends, it's just you. So be kind. Thank you so much.